And Jim Collins, who is at Jacksonville State College in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm sorry, is it Jacksonville? Florida State College in Jacksonville, Florida, did a presentation this spring I attended on institutional snobbery. So I'm trying to get him to do a webinar for us to talk about institutional snobbery. And he does it in a joking way as a former academic dean. He's trying to bring us down on the academic side of things and letting us know where we really and truly, how we're connected across the country, how we're connected with our programs, and that one faculty member in California, one faculty member in Oregon, one faculty member in North Carolina, and a faculty member here in Texas, we pretty much have the same common goals. We know the learning outcomes of our courses. Let's try to blend those, bring those together to see if we can make a credit recommendation from there. By the numbers, we've done a lot. This is the numbers just from 2014, 2015. Hopefully we're coming up in January. So as you can look at this, we've done 48 military reviews, looking at over 604 courses. Those training hours, if you can see right here, that's a lot of training hours. But sometimes one course could be 200 training hours, which is where some people don't understand when they go and look at our military guide. And it's like, no one can have a course with 2,000 hours or 300 hours. But you have to remember, these men and women are training to mission. So, and when they're in school 24/7. So even though, we have to separate during a review, what's the actual academic hours, what's the training hours, components, those kind of things, the study time, we have to break those out during the review. They're still doing a lot of work because they're there 24/7 while they're in school. We look at the number of recommended hours, at 3,872 semester hours. Again, for looking at the amount of courses that were reviewed, that's a lot of time and so spent there. 289 faculty members on review teams. If you can see what's in our active pool at the bottom, that's a good proportion of faculty members. So we've tried to spread it out as much as we possibly can. For the most part, on an average, you'll see someone would do military reviews based on their discipline and specialty. They may go an average of 3 to 4 times out a year or be asked to go because, again, their schedule kind of dictates if they can be on the team or not. I did count up, because I had to do this for ACE at my end of the year report. Over the last 6.5 years, I've done 49 military reviews. I've done another 17 corporate or credit reviews. And I think the Army has 30 to 31 active schoolhouses where people go to be trained, and I've been to 22 of that 30 to 31 schools. And the next level, I've been to a lot of Navy institutions. Being an Army veteran, I sometimes go on Navy, it bothers me, but no, so I've done a number of Navy reviews as well from there. So it is kind of time consuming for a review because sometimes we only have a day. Sometimes we have 2 days, and sometimes it can take a week. Just past March, I was at Fort Rucker at the Warrant Officer School for their leadership, one of their leadership programs, and we were there for 4 days. So that's a long time to be away from the office. That's a long time to wait sometimes to be away from your classes, and also to be away from family as well. The team is made up of a coordinator, so you will have someone like me go out and coordinate the team, and so we work as normally there's 2 coordinators, one that works with the institution itself, and that's normally a full-time ACE staff member, and then you will have a person like me who is a team coordinator who will work with the faculty since we have that faculty background. So we work with the faculty. Subject matter experts, so every course has 3 reviewers on it. So it's touched 3 times and it's read 3 times by a reviewer, and there has to be consensus. All 3 we have to have consensus. If not, I've seen courses go up to 4 or 5 people as well on a review until we can kind of get consensus. And sometimes if we don't get consensus, that course does not get credit. So someone actually in another session one time said, well, you guys have a contract with the government, so of course you have to make a recommendation. No, we don't. There have been times where we have made very few credit recommendations based on the number of courses we've reviewed, and I know those service members were not happy. The leadership was not happy, and I'm thinking in the back of my head, okay, Chris, you have to pull us out. We have to lay down a suppressive fire, get everyone in the van, get them off post real quick. Because we know they're not happy with this. But one of the things we tell them that we appreciate everything that you're doing. This doesn't relate to college level credit. 2, I do not want to have an angry service person in my classroom who basically we've made a recommendation for it and they can't handle that next level class, so they struggle, they drop out, then you guys are upset with ACE, or you don't trust the process any longer. So that's one of the things that we made sure that we look at really hard and, on that point. We normally have the psychometrician on the team only if we are looking at test validation, and most of the time that's normally on the corporate level, but sometimes on the military level from that. This is everything that we look at. And how many people in the room have academic experience as far as teaching in the classroom or on the campuses? So this looks very familiar to the curriculum review process, right? This is almost the same exact thing that we're doing. Remember, we're academic people, so we helped create this process for ACE back in the day. Well, they did. And so as an academic person, you know, we've kind of continued that. So this is very much the same as a curriculum review process. This is the same thing that I would expect to see in the curriculum review process as someone is introducing the course to us to go into our catalog and be active from there. So looking at the course syllabus, different thing about the course syllabus for military, it could be 50 pages long. It can be 100 pages long sometimes when we're looking at it. The Navy calls it a TCCD, Army calls it a POI, military, the Marines call it something out of the Red Book. I can't remember what they actually call it from there. And then the Coast Guard also calls it a POI as well. So again, it's a lot of material to look through as we go through with this review process. The instructor qualifications, this is, I have to put a little asterisk here from that point. Normally on a credit review, we definitely look at the instructor's background. When we come to the military, part of our contract is that they already go through their rank and file system with their instructors. So for most military schoolhouses, you're looking at the best of the best in that particular occupational field already. They've gone through that, so we really don't question that within that sense. But you know, when we actually have brought it up, and I can give you an example, Fort Lee, Virginia, the Ordnance School, their faculty mentor development process is way above anything I've seen on some of the campuses I've worked on or other campuses I've visited as an accreditor. So for me, I'm very impressed with what they had, and I wish we could have taken it off with us, but we're not allowed to take anything with us from that point. But even how they continually develop their faculty members on a continuing education basis is incredible too. So they rotate in and they rotate out on a cycle from that, but again, they are the best of the best. The Marine Corps Recruiter School, San Diego, incredible job that these guys do from what they do and some of the projects that they actually have to do in order to graduate. So not only just the academic stuff, the hands-on stuff that some of our classes could never touch, what they're actually doing there for that. Again, similar to the course syllabus and process, we look at content, we look at the learning outcomes, we look at the depth and the breadth of that information that's being presented to us in that course. We also look at the level of difficulty, which sometimes is a little hard thing to go with. And to give you an example, Navy War College 2 springs ago, they were not happy with some credit recommendations that we made. And they're like, our officers already have bachelor's degrees. Why are you making recommendations for lower division or upper division courses? And I had to tell the Rear Admiral that, sorry sir, that it does not matter about your learner. It's about the course material that's presented to us. So that's how we focus that recommendation on. These people can have doctorate degrees or so, but if that course is written at a upper level or lower level division, that's the credit that recommendation is actually made. And that, you know, that stuff can change in a future review, but right now from what we see in front of us, that's how that recommendation is made from that point. So this is very interesting on the level of difficulty part when we make that. Can we apply it to higher education curriculum now? Can I find this course in a classroom somewhere? So if I'm with, I don't know, let's say Jim's Taco Hut Corporation and they have a secret Diablo sauce, but can that sauce be taken elsewhere? And if it cannot be taken anywhere else in the country or the world, so most likely there won't be a credit recommendation for that because we have to be able to apply it across higher education, not at one particular organization. So again, if it's not there, we can't, and it's not being able to transfer it out, we can't do that. Assessments is another part that sometimes is very difficult from that point. So we want to look and see what the assessments are. Are they at the level of difficulty we need them to be? Are they addressing those learning outcomes? So again, everything we look at on the curriculum review process, we look in our classrooms, this is what we're looking for in the review process. Our occupational reviews, and I bring this up real quick, I love occupation reviews because I get to interact with the service members, but I hate occupation reviews because I have to work with my team members after the interviews. We interview service members, and we start from the lowest pay grade within that occupation or rating, and then we go up to the top, and we don't go to the officers, we actually stay with the enlisted members. And so what we do is we interview a panel, and it's anywhere between 5 to 6 of those people in that rank or in that pay grade. And we pretty much have to make sure that their education that they've already received, the formal education, is being applied, and we have to see how is it being applied. So experiential learning is what's going on here at this point. So they have to articulate to us. So sometimes talking to the lower grade individuals is like pulling teeth, and then talking to our higher grades, our E7s, E8s, and E9s, we listen to them, they're doing everything in the world, which I'm like, when I was in, my E9 never was sweeping the floor, was never walking guard duty or so on that standpoint. But if you listen to those guys, they tell you all of that. So the occupation reviews are really nice, and I like, again, I like them because we actually interact with them, we hear what they're doing, they talk about it. But when we go behind closed doors as a team, we have to figure out what level, for what percentage, and when we're making this decision, we're not just making it for these individuals in the room, we're not making it for that individual Navy base or that Army post, we're not doing it for that, we're doing it for everyone in that pay grade in the military, in that branch, in that occupation. So it's very tough because we want to make sure we don't slight anyone in any particular way because of this representation, but at the same time we want to make sure it's fair because they're receiving credit to come into your classrooms later on, and we want to make sure they can actually stand up to par, so we want to make sure they're doing what they say they are doing. And after going through all of that, we make the team recommendation. Those team recommendations start at the lower vocational certificate level, can go all the way up to graduate level. So again, as I mentioned, just because an individual already has a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, if that course presented, if that material presented is only at the undergraduate level, upper division, lower division, that's that recommendation is actually made from that standpoint. So I'm going to stop there and see if anyone has any questions about the review process, because sometimes that's a little bit more kind of detailed than it goes. Yes?
This is not off the path yet, but is your presentation on slides that we can access? Your information is very helpful with feedback and administration regarding the review process.
Yep. Hopefully, I'm waiting for, I always say from the gods on Mount Olympus. Are we recording that? I'm sorry. Normally, I have to get permission before we disseminate it out from ACE, so I'm waiting for that person to get back in contact with me. It will be available on the website, that Christine, the portal website that she mentioned. It will be available on there once we get the check off from that point. So, and again, we've done this information just solely on the review process. We've done this via webinar as well too. Within that, I think I've done over 27 webinars as a faculty primer. Working with faculty members to understand the review process, so we can also do those as well from there.
So do I understand that based on the review process that you would give someone credit without actually doing an active assessment of that individual? But you would say, we know what the training content is.
Right, yeah, based on the formal training content that we know that's in all of the documentation for, and this is for the occupation review, because for a course review, it's a little different. We actually sit down and look at the course, review the course, interview the instructors, those kind of things there. But for the occupation review, based on what's been presented to us by that service member, we talk about the experiential learning, and we connect that back to the guide. So when we walk in the room, and I have a picture, I think, coming up here.
So is it because it's less expensive to already say, okay, this is equivalent to like looking at a college transcript, as opposed to just taking everybody on their ability to demonstrate their competence?
Well, based on their ability is the point that they're in that rank already. They're in that field already, because you would not graduate from, say, if you were doing the nuclear school at New Britain for the subs. You would never graduate from that school if you didn't have it. And we do look at the retake rates, which are very low. We do look at the dropout rates, but again, for the most part, this is their job as well too. So that's like us failing an evaluation, knowing that you don't have a job any longer. in this particular area that you're in. So, does that make sense?
It does. I was thinking that faculty would be more comfortable if there was an actual demonstration of it.
Well, sometimes we do have some simulations that the team actually sees. Because of sensitive natures or so from that point, we can't just video out. That's the Department of Defense. And I haven't, it's come up on my next slide, but here, this is Mike, one of our reviewers. This is all one course. And I think on this review for Mike, because I think I was with them, we only had one day. We started at 7 a.m. and the exit briefing was at 5 p.m. that day. So sometimes we only have a short time to go through this material. But again, there's 3 faculty members on every course as we go along. And actually here, this is another review room. You see one reviewer in the back on a laptop because, again, we're on a secure government facility. We can only use what they give us. We can't bring in our own laptops. We can't bring in our own jump drives for courses. So it's very hard sometimes for the faculty members to work in an environment. So here you have people working while half of the team's out doing the tour and watching the actual simulation. So before they shut Ingleside down, which is down near Galveston, right, area from there. So before they shut the Ingleside Naval Station down, I was there in 2011. They actually took us out on the ship to show us how one of the surface warfare mines worked from that point. So we get to see a lot of hands-on simulations or so from that point. And it'd be nice if we could pipe it out, but again, that's up to the government for the most part. And I've been on reviews where we have shown up like at Fort Leonard Wood when you're doing some of the chemical and engineering programs. Some of that stuff is classified and sensitive. Even Fort Huachuca going down to military intelligence. And so a lot of the stuff has been cleansed where we can't see things, and so we're like, we have to see this to make a decision. Well, you don't have that classification, you don't have that security clearance. Well, you don't have a course to review for us then. And we've been there where we should have 17, 20 courses to review, and by the end of the day, we've only reviewed 5 because the rest we could not see because of security clearance. But those courses aren't reviewed, no recommendations are made from that point. And so then that 3-day review now turns into a 1.5-day review, and so those kind of things there happen from that point. And as we were just talking about on that subject, a lot of recommendations are not made. And as I gave the example about the Diablo sauce, if it's too specific, if we can't take it anywhere else, it doesn't happen. It can't go anywhere for that point. When we look at the content, if that content is not at academic rigor, which is what a faculty member would expect to see in their classroom on their campus, it does not happen. When we look at the evaluation assessment, and this hurts so bad sometimes. I've seen some really, really good courses. And what happens is the assessments are like at a lower division level, or I can open up a wonderful course on military intelligence, and that exam is like multiple choice. 25 questions. No, you would not see that on one of our campuses, so especially for an upper level division course like this with the material that they actually have. So everything else is there, hits, blooms in every other area, but except on that assessment, and then that recommendation is not made. And then the last part is that, again, as I just mentioned, if we can't make a decision because the material's not there, it's not there. And we've been where, well, we can get that together. You have 2 hours because we have something to do in this area. We have 3 faculty members have to go through this. And then at the end of the day, even with the 3 faculty members, we go around the room and we talk about our courses, we talk about what we review, we talk about our questions on the course. And so again, a team consensus. So there could be 17 members on our team. Everyone, we talk about our recommendations, and we make sure that they're in par because there is going to be someone else checking it from that point. And then even after review, I always say it goes back to the mothership in DC. There is another panel, there is another review panel that will review these for any corrections that need to be made. And I've been on teams where they have called us 2 days after the review saying, okay, I don't understand this recommendation here. We need to get on the conference call with the team again and get this together. And sometimes even that recommendation that the team made may be overturned because that internal faculty review team saw something that just was not on par. Those kind of things happen as well too. So when we get to that level and you have those credit recommendations, how many people have been out to the military guide? The one online. I did meet someone who still had the old paper version who told me about that, and I told him I was way too young to know about those things. But so the military guide is now online, and also so is our corporate guide as well. And what you can do is, the way the database has been set up, they've actually even increased it to a different level at this point where you can actually do some Excel spreadsheet downloads and you can have that material. But the problem is the guide changes almost every day because of the reviews being done, because of courses being updated and changed. So then you have to always just make sure that you have the most updated version on some things. But this is part of the mapping process when you get to your campuses. And this is where we found that some of the faculty members and even some administrators don't understand because they don't use the guide enough. So we've been working on different webinars and training sessions where we teach you how to use the guide, how to appropriately use the guide. But the biggest thing I like to tell people, which is here on the screen, is that basically the recommendations are there to guide you. And I love it when I've been to campus and they would say, well, ACE says we had to, and I'm thinking like, I think those guys in DC would love it if you guys did everything they said do, but this is a credit recommendation. You have to sometimes mold that credit recommendation to how it fits your campus. And there's a lot of different things that some schools have done to help that happen. So again, everything's not really linked to that recommendation, it's actually linked to what you need to do and how you need to work it on your campuses from there. Now, I won't tell you can take a lower level division course and take it into an upper level division. I would not say do anything like that, but you kind of look and see how you can kind of string that along, maybe blend in that credit recommendation with actually an occupational recommendation from a course. Working in those particular ways there from that. There's rarely a perfect match. And give you a perfect example, well, one is kind of facetious, that I had one person in a session pull up a copy she printed out, and she says, how can I work the multi-theater operational leader into one of our courses? We don't have a theater program. And I kind of laughed because for anybody in the room who has military experience, and maybe you don't have to have military experience, we're not really talking about theater. They're talking about the theater in the sense of warfare. So we're actually using that military lingo and speak from that point. But if you go down and read deeper into that course description, you will understand that we're actually talking about a person who's working in 3 different environments, or maybe even 4 different wartime environments. But they're actually, the key thing for me is leader. They're actually leading this process some way, somehow, as a section leader, as a chief leader from that point. So really reading deep down into those descriptions is important, and we try to make sure we write them up as a registrar would want them to write them up. And I recall back becoming a chair and going through my first curriculum review and having our registrar standing over me as I'm writing course descriptions, and every time I mess up, she slaps me in the back of the head. No, not like that. And so I think about Gwen all the time, because I'm like, we want to make sure people understand this on campuses. And then when we write up the learning objectives, we really sometimes can't change those too much, but we write them out to where hopefully you can understand what that learning objective is. We try to do 5 to 6 learning objectives when we do that rewrite. So if you've been to the guide, you've actually seen those exhibits there, and as you pull them up, read all the way through. 2 things that we've added new to those recommendations, and I couldn't get the screen print to show up on this really well, so I didn't want to put it up there so you guys can squint for it. But when you go to the guide, you can actually see it. We've added 2 little sections or so from that point. One is related competencies. We have added that in as faculty members to help people on the campuses understand where this course can actually lead to. So when I talk about a related competency with the multi-theater operational leader, I can sit back and talk about leadership. I talk about communications. We talk about, most of them are working with multinational groups. So we're talking about working, learning multiculturalism. Those kind of topics and stuff come up in those particular areas, and those are the kind of training that they actually get. So some of these guys, when they're going out to the Mideast, they're actually taking a very quick indoctrination into the Middle Eastern and Arabic culture. I actually saw one a few years ago that I thought was really good, because not only did it just talk about here and now, it went back to the past. And as a person who likes to teach history courses, that made me smile, because you have to really learn why these regions are like this because of past things that's taking place, not what's going on right now. So the military has gotten a little better and smarter in learning those kind of things from there. And as this other bullet mentions, you can bundle, and I gave that example earlier. Look at the courses, look at the occupation, look at other things that you do on your campus. You can even have them do portfolios as well. So there's always different ways to kind of bundle and look at these type of credit recommendations. Again, need it to what you actually need to use it for on your campus. And then when we talk about the no minimum number of crosswalks with the guide or the recommendations, you set your crosswalks up how you need to set them up to work with your programs. So again, if you see a course sometimes, and I think some of you guys have probably seen it, where we have a course where it's only 1.5 credits, and you're probably like, what was these guys smoking? Well, the issue is that we have to divvy out, as I mentioned earlier, academic work compared to training. So if they're on a FTX, which is a field training exercise, we normally don't pull that into academic hours because it was not anywhere in the academic setting. There was no theory there. This was only practice. So we try to separate those when we look at those training hours as well too within those courses. So that's when we make those recommendations at 1.5 or 1 credit from there. I mentioned earlier a number of states are really getting hard and heavy into this. Ohio's legislation came through 2012, 2013. So, and their border regions have been kind of gangbusters on that. And I know Kel has done some work with the Ohio border regions as well, and they're working within the schools within their state. And I think they're working both public and private. They're trying to bring everyone together into the table in that area. So they're doing a lot of different things within that, trying to get organized as much as they can. Colorado State, the global campus, John Bellum, I think is his name, is one of the VPs kind of pushing this. John started from a different standpoint. He started first with faculty engagement. He made sure he got the faculty involved first. So it's not as this is an administrative initiative, this is actually a faculty initiative, showing them what your students know in your classrooms already. So if you have someone who's actually been running a business for 15, 20 years, they haven't gone belly up yet, they're not being chased down by the IRS or anything from that point, most likely they kind of know the basics of entrepreneurship. So what can you pull out of your students in that class, or what can you do to help them get academic credit for what they've done in their portfolio process to move them into the next level class from there. So John has actually taken that, working with the faculty first and encouraging all of that engagement from the faculty standpoint of things, which is really neat. Northern Virginia Community College, they took an interesting approach. They started to approach it from the student side. It's one of those kind of things, my wife is in healthcare and she does a number of trainings, especially in areas of patient satisfaction. And one of the key things I always hear her say is that sometimes the patient doesn't know how to be a patient. Sometimes a student doesn't know how to be a student, because they haven't been taught that, and we haven't actually showed them how to be that. So they've taken the student approach to this. So they're actually teaching the students what PLA is, what CPL is. They're showing them what they could do, so they're having these students go back and search their memory, search their old jobs, and see if they can actually get some credit. Having them go to the ACE website if they're a veteran. If they're not a veteran, maybe they were with some corporation like, say, Pfizer, and Pfizer made them take the soft skills course. Soft skills is one of the corporations that ACE has worked with that has received credit for some of the leadership and supervisory training and communications training that they do. So they may be able to already have credit for oral communication, so they don't have to stand up in front of a class and pass out because they're nervous about being in front of a group. Those kind of things, will look place, but Northern Virginia is taking that role of let's start with our students as well and teach them, because then that lessens our work, especially because they, at one point, I think they were having a lot of people start a portfolio, never finish the portfolios because it got just too cumbersome for them. So showing them from the jump what they need, how it needs to be done before you even go into that class, that portfolio class, and waste the faculty members' time, waste their time, those kind of things. So, and again, this is going to be available to you guys later on, but these are some wonderful institutions that's done some great military crosswalks. Ivy Tech worked well with McDonald's Corporation in McDonald's management training program. So those individuals who went through their management program at the Hamburger U, they actually were able to receive some credit through Ivy Tech, which is actually in Indiana. They have several campuses in Indiana. Fayetteville Tech went through a FISPE grant where they actually worked right down the street with Fort Bragg, a huge military installation, and then Pope Air Force Base, which is right next door to them, also worked with them. They actually worked to map a number of military occupations just at that institution. They matched their programs with those military occupations at Fort Bragg to do it. So when some people go back, and there are some schools who just map everything in the world. And that may be a waste of time, because if you're a landlocked institution, you may not see too many Navy credits and stuff going on, but like San Diego State would actually do well, because you're right there with the San Diego Navy Station, and you have North Island there as well too. Plus you also have the Marine Corps Training Station right up the road. I mentioned MinSCU has done a great job in kind of mapping their program. So Minnesota has kind of set the pace for a lot of different institutions and groups, because people are going to them to say, hey, how did you do this? And it's a lot of time consuming, and I cannot remember the lady's name who gave the presentation from their system, but they actually, how they got their faculty involved, they showed their faculty members how much time this would save them if they did this project mapping, rather than doing individual portfolio reviews. So she has a wonderful presentation where she outlines, just the amount of time, consumption, all of this other stuff. And so when you show that to a faculty member, they're like, heck yeah, we're going to do this, because we don't want to do this over here and waste all of this time. Old Dominion University, they actually have a great database put up, this transformation, how they call it, looking at what transfers in and out. So they've put together a nice little database that helps people give, or at least students, with understanding how things transfer. And I know a lot of institutions have used that as well. Mary Beth Lakem, who is the director of the College and Universities program, she actually came from Old Dominion, so she was part of that project when she was there. So she definitely knows a lot about this process. Central Texas College, I think they have a really good database that they've set up. I've actually used it a couple of times when I've actually worked with some of our veteran students. I've sent them there to look at different things and get an idea of how their MOS may match up to a particular program. Coastline Community College has done a really good job as well too. Jocelyn Grout, who is their, I think she's been promoted to VP, but she was the dean of their military affairs program. So her team did a wonderful job setting this up. She's done it for all branches. And I think they've actually thrown in the California National Guard as well too, because there's a little bit different with some of those occupations there from that. I have not been with Lansing. I have not checked this out. This is actually Patty Brewer threw this on last week for me. She is actually, because she's that Midwest regional liaison, so she's done some work with Lansing Community College out of Michigan from that, but she wanted to make sure that, if you guys want to go check them out, you can. And Miami-Dade College, and I think they also had either a Kresge or a FIPSE grant, but Tiffany Malvern, I think that's her last name, but I know it's Tiffany. She's the director of their PLA program there, and Miami-Dade has about 6 or 7 campuses around the area. But they've actually done a wonderful job too at mapping a number of their programs with Coast Guard, Navy, and Air Force. So again, you look at your local region, what's there available to you, what can you work with. Even if it's National Guard or Army Reserve units, those are still viable areas from that point. And then you can kind of get your student base from there. And these are some additional resources, which again will be part of the website from there. These are actually 3 of the most recent webinars that we've done on particular topics. So talking about the military or ACE review process, so this is recorded. We actually did another one on state systems, how a lot of state systems were coming together. And then there was another one where we always get this from faculty members. What about the accreditors? They say we can't do this. So we actually pulled the accreditors together, and we actually had a webinar about the accreditors, and most of them say, we don't say that. it says states this in our policy, it states this in our procedures, or so from that point, but we leave this up to the individual campuses in some ways. So again, always go back and check the accreditor's guide and see what's actually there, but normally it's very rare if they actually tell you what to do about transfer credit, but they tell you how it should be done. So after all of that, and the reason why Christine picked me to go first, because I'm in between you guys and lunch. So, any questions?
Here is a website, acenet.edu/newsroom pages, adult learners using your ACE credit recommendations. Okay, so we had an inquiry on our campus regarding that website because we were listed on that website as accepting certain workforce certification exams, which we do not accept.
Thank you.
And we were listed there along with, I think, every university in the universe and college. And we adhere to or look at, not accept blanketly, as you say, all ACE recommendations, but we certainly, know what they are, CLAP and DSST, and
Right.
we're close to come on quite a few of those. But so we're not sure if that is a website that is being used correctly or incorrectly, or
Okay. I'll have to double check on that one because you're probably a little bit above my pay grade level on that. But one of the things I can tell you, if your institution is part of ACE as a membership organization, and when your college or even the organization signs that agreement, it's basically, it's kind of like a blanket thing that you will accept, but we tell all students, it is up to the individual institution. So again, when I made the comment, ACE can't tell you what to do, but if your organization is signed on as a member, you're basically saying that you will consider, look at, receiving or accepting prior learning prior learning, or credit for prior learning for experiential work from students from there. So yeah.
do you accept all the exams within that battery?
Again, that's going to be up to your institution and the faculty. And I know like Colorado has basically done a blanket, or I think they're finishing up the legislation where they're going to, across the state, no matter if it's community college or four-year school, they're basically saying every institution will say CLEP, you will accept this CLEP score. I don't know if you guys have done that here in Texas or not from there, but that's why we give that little bit of disclaimer. You have to check with each individual institution. Yeah. Okay, you guys note that. I did know something on that one, not you? Any other questions? I have John here. He can get questions out of you guys if he needs to. So, for that. Sure. Okay. Well, if there are no other questions at all, I thank you guys for listening. So, I will be giving out some business cards, so if you need to get in contact with me via email, but there are some postcards I put on everyone's table, so you can contact the college and university partnership. We created our own email address, so you can send something there if you have questions, and then that will filter out to either corporate credit office, military credit, or will stay within the CUP office for any questions so later on. Okay, thanks a lot. Whew.